Despite hiding in plain sight, nothing is ever as it seems. This is a recurring motif throughout the cerebral science fiction movie Ex Machina, which blurs the line between natural and technical thought and analyzes the definition of being human. The screenplay opens with a meticulously crafted prologue that immediately immerses the viewer into its frighteningly realistic realm of isolation, power dynamics, and the unsettling interaction between humanity and artificial intelligence. So let's hack into the nuances of the first 10 pages and decode the thematic elements that set the stage for the intellectual yet emotional Frankenstein story that follows. It's not an opinion, it's barely an analysis, it's just the first 10 pages. A computer programmer named Caleb wins a lottery to spend a week with his wealthy, reclusive, and eccentric boss, Nathan, at his remote research facility. Nathan tells him that he's been brought there to be the human component in a Turing test for his new AI robot, Ava. After Caleb's first introduction to Ava, he's blown away by her and tries to give an analysis of her programming. Nathan, however, is looking for an emotional response, not an intellectual one. Caleb has trouble sleeping that night and watches Ava on a monitor. When the power goes out, Nathan reveals the doors lock during outages to prevent people from breaking in or out. The next morning, Caleb is awoken by a woman named Kyoko. Nathan asks Caleb to ascertain how Ava feels about him. Ava shows Caleb a drawing and asks him to be friends. She pries into his personal life, learning about the car crash that killed his parents. Another power outage occurs, and she warns him not to trust Nathan. When asked by Nathan later about the blackout, Caleb lies to him. On day 3, Nathan shows Caleb how he built Ava's brain, synthetic materials, and search engine algorithms. Her face was built by using data from facial recognition software to build a more expressive model. During the session, Ava dresses in human clothes and asks if Caleb will take her out on a date. Caleb asks Nathan if she was programmed to flirt with him as a diversion tactic. Nathan tells him no, and then gives him a lecture using a Jackson Pollock painting as a metaphor for humanity, and therefore Ava, something between random and planned. Caleb tells Ava about a programming fable, Mary in the Black and White Room, emphasizing the difference between a computer's brain and a human one. Another power outage occurs, and Ava reveals that she's the one responsible. She wants to see what Caleb says when he thinks Nathan isn't watching. Later, Nathan confirms Caleb's suspicions that he didn't win the lottery, but was in fact chosen, saying he needed someone who'd ask the right questions. When Nathan rips up Ava's paper, Caleb goes to confront him and spies Nathan's personal office. For their 5th session, Ava tests Caleb, but finds his answers dissatisfactory. She asks if he wants to be with her and reveals that she's more advanced and self-aware than previously thought. Caleb asks Nathan why he built Ava. He replies by saying that AI is the next stage of human evolution, just like Ava is the latest model, but not the final product. He reveals that he plans to improve on her once Caleb leaves, effectively killing her. Nathan gets blackout drunk and Caleb steals his keycard to break into his office. He accesses Nathan's computer and learns about the previous models and that Kyoko is a robot herself. Caleb gets the keycard to Nathan before being found out, but questions whether he is a robot himself. During their next session, Ava cuts the power again, and Caleb tells her Nathan plans to kill her, but he's going to help her escape. His plan is to get Nathan drunk, steal his keycard, and break into his office. However, Nathan doesn't go for it, instead revealing that he knows all about Caleb's plan, having put a new camera in Ava's room. However, he's not mad, since it means that Ava is so lifelike that she successfully manipulated Caleb using every human trick in the book. He even tells Caleb that he was chosen not because of his programming skills, but because of his lack of personal life and his search history. That's why you clear it, you amateur. The power goes out again, and Caleb tells Nathan that he already enacted his plan the night before, allowing Ava to escape tonight. Nathan knocks him out before going to confront Ava, who teams up with Kyoko. After Kyoko stabs Nathan, he kills her, allowing Ava to stab him again. He bleeds out in the hallway and dies. Caleb watches Ava cover herself with synthetic skin from older models. She leaves him locked in Nathan's office and takes the helicopter originally meant for him back to civilization. She blends into society, fooling them into thinking that she is one of them. The Turing test is finally complete. Before we begin, let's talk about the title of the film. Obviously, Machina is Latin for machine, so the surface-level analysis tells us that this movie will heavily revolve around one. However, ex machina is a portion of the infamous Latin idiom deus ex machina, meaning God from the machine, a narrative device where an unsolvable problem is given an unexpected solution to result in a happy ending. But to go deeper, it's worth noting that various religions believe that humankind was made in God's image, thus the philosophical idea that humanity is God. This, combined with a Latin idiom, is basically telegraphing Nathan's desires to have created humanity from a machine, and Ava's goals to be among the humans despite being a machine. The screenplay begins looking at a computer monitor. With just one image, we understand what this movie's about: computers. With the next line telling us that coding appears on the screen, we can infer that our chief characters will be programmers. Then what is this? Am I expected to know this? I'm not a programmer. I can't even begin to decipher this. Well, that's an unconventional thing to see in a script. I do still think there's meaning in it, though. I had to do a bit of research for this, seeing as how I'm not a programmer myself, but near as I can tell, the following code translates thusly. Extern is probably a typo meant to say extern, short for external, referring to variables to be found in another file if or after defining a variable or function. Putchar, I think, is short for put characters, which I can only assume, based on the subsequent ABC string in the n factorial, enables typing functions, i.e. forming sentences. The A, B, and C lines likely function with the input of the first line, the external functions, and these lines form the word hello, basically starting our movie off by saying hello. The end of the script has the same sequence, but the words that are spelled out there say goodbye, which creates an interesting bookend to the script. Basically, this string of random code seems to foreshadow Ava. The extern function foreshadows Nathan's desire to bring in Caleb and Assessor, but also her desire to use him to escape. The putchar string mean to form the basis of her speech, pulling from outside sources to appear as human as possible, which is a result of Nathan programming her with not only what people search for, but how they search for it. We see various people sitting at computer screens in an open-plan office. A few paragraphs emphasize the friendliness of the environment, such as co-workers talking, casual clothing, and personal decorations. As friendly as it seems, open floor plans tend to be less private in nature. This is interesting, since Nathan will be spying on Caleb and Ava's sessions, but will also admit that he used people's personal data and cameras to lend authenticity to Ava's programming and facial tics.
Facial interaction. You hacked the world's cell phones?
Yeah, and all the manufacturers knew I was doing it too.
Next we meet our lead character, Caleb. He's using the hunt and peck method of typing, which is curious given that this method of typing is slower and reportedly leads to more typing errors, but we can guess that his approach to computers is something that needs improvement, which is something that Nathan will comment on later in regard to how Caleb views Ava. Caleb listens to music through his headphones, the universal, yet ironically ineffective, symbol of "don't bother me," a hint towards his personality traits that Nathan will exploit later. We're seeing this character through the lens of a camera running facial recognition software, which foreshadows a few things. First, Nathan is watching Caleb. This will be important later when it's revealed that Caleb didn't win the lottery, but was chosen. Even more so during the climax when he specifies that he was chosen not because of his programming prowess, but his personal life, or lack thereof. Second, the fact that Nathan will be watching Caleb throughout his sessions with Ava, even the last one which happened mostly during a blackout. Lastly, the facial recognition software foreshadows how Nathan used his software to record people's faces. By drawing information on facial movements and specific tics from such a large data pool, say roughly 8 billion, he was able to create a more realistic and expressive face for Ava. As we close this page, we've already surmised everything we need to know about Nathan before we're even given an idea of who he is. He's smart and puts on a friendly face, but that's just a facade. There's something sinister lying beneath the surface of our antagonist. As the software continues to analyze Caleb's face, further cementing the notion that he's under observation, he receives an email with a hidden subject line. This is pretty much the inciting incident, with Caleb winning a contest, though we never do find out what contest he entered, since it ultimately becomes irrelevant. The more important detail is the hidden subject. Aside from Nathan's facilities being hidden in the wilderness, this line suggests that Nathan's true intentions are a mystery themselves, despite being hidden in plain sight.
Your head's been so fucked with.
This could also apply to Ava, seeing as how her true intentions are also a mystery. Suddenly, the open floor plan of the office makes sense. On the next couple of pages, Caleb's co-workers will congratulate him for winning, thereby showing his lack of privacy. Caleb reads the email full of good news and reacts appropriately, immediately going to text someone the good news. But then we get the real reason that Caleb's features are being analyzed. As Caleb lifts his phone, that camera starts analyzing his features, reacting to the shifts in his expression. Ava will later talk about how the subtle motions and shifts that Caleb has whilst talking to her and is able to deduce how he's feeling, particularly about her, during their sessions. It could be, basically, her incepting him, planting the idea of him liking her so he will start to like her. Furthermore, it's these subtle shifts in Caleb's expression that Nathan cares so deeply about, because being able to harness the little things will help him perfect his creation. The charade continues as Caleb texts whomever he's texting. I don't think we ever really find out. From context, the text appears congratulatory, though Caleb isn't the only one who gets to enjoy it. The phone is still analyzing his face, and the script deliberately says that it's watching Caleb react to the text, reinforcing the importance of subtle reactions, something that's very human. Caleb texts the mystery person back, and receives a string of congratulatory texts, with someone even requesting Caleb to take them along. These people are unimportant in the narrative of the film, but we also learn later that the contest itself was irrelevant, as it was just a front. Despite this, Caleb's coworkers seem enthusiastic about his win, which clearly means it's the opportunity of a lifetime. One of the girls even kisses Caleb on the cheek, which could be foreshadowing how Ava will prey upon his physical desires to escape, but also how Nathan used those desires to appeal directly to Caleb in an effort to manipulate him. The next line shows that Caleb still has his headphones in and does not hear the commotion around him. This could refer to a few things, such as the isolated facility, Nathan's inability to hear them during the blackouts, or Ava not being able to experience the world around her. But I think it's more about how Caleb is missing the bigger picture, which is something he'll do with Ava, Kyoko, and Nathan. After we get the title of the script, Caleb awakens in a helicopter, showing us that Nathan is a wealthy individual. Helicopter rides are not cheap. But this signifies that we, as the reader, have left the comfort and confines of the city and the open floor plan office and cut to open ranges of vast mountain landscape. More importantly, we've left the prying eyes of the world around us to venture into the isolated unknown. This vibes with Nathan's desires, seeing as how he wants privacy to work, especially since people would copy and or steal his idea if they could. However, he also wants to take Caleb away from prying eyes, offering Nathan the ability to spy on him 24/7. When Caleb asks how long he's slept, the pilot, Jay, responds that he fell asleep almost instantly when leaving the airport. Given Caleb's visible excitement and the string of texts that he got, it's not an unreasonable assumption that he was up all night celebrating and just passed out on the helicopter, further proving how big of a deal this win was. He even says as much later on. However, theoretically speaking, given Nathan's desire for privacy, vast wealth, and his fondness for alcohol, it's possible that he somehow drugged Caleb so he wouldn't be awake and thus able to know exactly where his facility is. Jay asks Caleb if he's a programmer and gets confirmation for our suspicions. Caleb is in fact a programmer who works on algorithms for Nathan's search engine. In the universe within this film, Nathan basically created Google, which he will later say he used to create Ava by analyzing what people looked up and how they did so. Lots of people can search up the same thing, but can get different results based on exactly what words they used when typing in the search bar. Despite not knowing what algorithms are, Jay knows that Caleb is a programmer and suggests that it's a good thing, since he and Nathan will speak the same language. Thus we learn that Nathan is a programmer himself. Caleb also reveals that he works in Long Island, a seemingly innocuous detail that'll have a little more importance on page 5. Caleb asks Jay if he knows Nathan well. Jay has never even met Nathan, only flying the helicopter between the airport and his residence. This further builds up the mystery of who Nathan is and what he's working on. However, this page allows us to fully crystallize what the movie will be about. Even if, as the semi-omniscient viewer of this world, we weren't privy to it before, the fact that the two lead characters are computer programmers and one of them is working on a top-secret facility on a top-secret project makes it easy to guess what exactly that project is. AI. Despite having never met him, Jay does say that he's seen Nathan once, standing on a mountain ridge like some kind of Sasquatch creature, raising the mystery of who he is and what he's about. Caleb reveals that he won a lottery to spend a week with the CEO. Jay congratulates Caleb for the opportunity, since even the president can't get an audience with Nathan. Caleb notices the scenery outside and asks how much longer until they get to Nathan's estate. Jay says that they've been doing so for 2 hours already. Now, I'm no realtor, but that seems like a pretty big estate. If we assume that this helicopter is a commercial one, i.e. prioritizing safety over speed, then it's likely that its average speed is about 145 miles per hour. So that means that Nathan's estate is at least 290 miles large. And remember that the script told us on page 4 that Caleb works in Long Island. Here we learn that Nathan's estate is in Alaska. That's quite the trip, clocking in at nearly 3,500 miles. And that's just if it's a direct flight path towards it. So, assuming that the helicopter had a full tank, wasted 0 fuel during the journey, and the pilot did not take any rest throughout the trip, now it is sci-fi, so there's probably advanced mechanics that circumvent these problems, that means it would have taken just over a full 24 hours to fly there by helicopter. Now call me crazy, but that's nuts. The key thing is that Nathan's estate is not an easy place to get to, and therefore is not an easy place to escape from. Now I thought it pertinent to mention the length of the journey for a key reason: Ava. Because even if she escapes the facility, she'll end up lost in the woods or the mountains. And despite what some people may think, machines can break down. Ava is a highly intricate automaton. In fact, when she escapes, she can't even overpower Nathan. She needs Kyoko's help to do so. At the end, Ava has to take another helicopter back to society. And the pilot at the end is only referred to as pilot, so it's likely not Jay, meaning they only know they're supposed to pick up a person, so it's not suspicious when Ava walks up instead of Caleb. But given the distance that the helicopter travels, assuming it does go all the way back to Long Island, Ava ensures that not only can she escape, but any trail that may follow her or connect her to Nathan at all is eliminated. Because once she can find her way to civilization, she'll blend in so well that she'll never be found again. The helicopter flies over a white glacier and waterfall, revealing a green valley within these icy mountains. It's an oasis, a little slice of paradise, which is the image that Nathan wants to project. And the description here, likely not doing the landscape any justice, does try to paint a clear picture of its beauty. But let's go deeper here, especially because the next few pages show Caleb trekking through the forest, trying to find Nathan's facility. Caleb is a computer person. He lives and breathes coding. He's a logical and mechanical thinker, in many ways a robot himself. Nathan tells him repeatedly that he wants a human answer from him, not a technical one. This trip into nature is meant to challenge him to see things differently, taking him out of his comfort zone. The helicopter touches down into the field. Nearby their landing site is a collection of huge metal crates, with Chinese characters on the side, probably meant to further distress Caleb as it's probably a language he doesn't understand. Oh wait, hold on. Nathan actually tells us later on that Kyoko doesn't speak a word of English because he doesn't want his secrets getting out. The metal crates probably have Chinese characters on the side because he doesn't want outsiders knowing what they are. Then the script tells us the helicopter blades are slowing down, but not stopping, signifying that Jay won't stay for long. Both occupants exit the aircraft, and Jay retrieves Caleb's luggage for him. Because there's nothing around except for the crates, Caleb asks why the pilot is leaving him there. The script even goes so far as to enforce the fact that there are no man-made structures around. It's a little interesting because this kind of sets up Ex Machina to be, well, a horror film. And yeah, the parallels to Frankenstein are obvious. Despite Ava being the creature created in a lab, Nathan is the one the movie chooses to portray as monstrous. But that's not really what I'm talking about, seeing as how this movie is Caleb's story, who's put in an isolated and unfamiliar environment. He's subjected to a mad scientist that seems friendly, if quirky, at first, but grows to understand that he's unhinged and morally compromised. There's something that he's building in his basement that is supposed to be a scientific breakthrough, but is ultimately more dangerous than either of the characters are prepared for. The manipulation and paranoia cause him to doubt reality, and there's even an underlying motif of control versus chaos. Furthermore, the movie doesn't have a happy ending for Caleb, who gets to spend the remainder of his life locked away, staring at the corpse of his boss, living with the knowledge that he helped kill him. All that awaits the naive young man as he steps forward, unknowingly, into his doom. Jay clarifies that his helicopter is only allowed to get this close to the building, reinforcing the idea that Nathan wants privacy. There's an interesting character trait being displayed for Nathan. He's a little paranoid. Sure, most mad scientist characters are, but he's in a facility that's got nearly 300 miles of space around it, and it's nearly impassable. He clearly doesn't want to be disturbed, which, as we'll learn later, is for security reasons, as people could steal his work. However, there is the point that I mentioned earlier. It's also about keeping Ava locked in. Jay directs Caleb to follow the river to reach his destination, and asks him to get a safe distance away from the blades. The helicopter being the only danger in the area for Caleb could be a metaphor for the threat of technology, which becomes more apparent later in the film. Caleb is a natural human who's lost himself to the technical and mechanical side of life. His responses to Nathan's questions start as such, even going so far as to quote other creators in an attempt to display his intelligence. He's trying an educated approach to the subject matter, but as Nathan repeatedly states, that's Caleb's folly, not his strength.
Look, do me a favor, lay off the textbook approach. I just want simple answers to simple questions.
Nathan is looking for a human answer, a natural response. He wants to know if Caleb likes her, not if she's an impressive machine. He already knows that. It's almost as if Caleb is so deep in the mechanical side that he's lost his own humanity. This is further reinforced by the sound of the helicopter fading in the distance, leaving Caleb looking very isolated. As he walks along the river, Caleb starts to feel that it can't be the right way. Indeed, Caleb's journey throughout this movie does not take on the trajectory that he thought it would. Additionally, neither Nathan nor Ava behave as expected, with the latter eventually revealing that she merely manipulated Caleb into furthering her goals, despite him executing his plan so they can run away together. Caleb even checks his phone when he's lost here to see that there is no signal. The page comes to a close as Caleb finds himself looking at a steel structure hidden by the trees. Hidden like Nathan's true intentions, his master plans, his secrets, and her secrets. Caleb walks towards the structure and finds a circular window, reflecting the sky. An interpretation of this is that a man-made structure is reflecting natural phenomenon, just like what Nathan intends for Ava to be. He then looks into the window and sees a glass well, at the bottom of which is a brightly lit office, with no one inside. Either this is Nathan's office and Caleb ends up trapped at the bottom of the well, or this is Ava's room and she's the one who's trapped, looking up to Caleb for help. Beyond the forest, Caleb reaches the building, and an automated voice speaks to him. A continual motif throughout the film is the notion of machines being in control. Nathan assumes that he has control of the facility, but Ava is the one causing power failures. Nathan built the robot and assumes that he controls them, but they end up killing him. He even assumes that he has control when he shows Caleb the footage he recorded when they were in blackout, only to discover that Caleb has already enacted his plan beforehand. Caleb confirms his identity and a pillar arises from the ground, with a screen on it and a dispenser beneath it. The voice tells him to approach. As he does, the screen flashes, blinding Caleb momentarily. This likely foreshadows Caleb's blind admiration of Nathan, his technological advancements, and the dangers that lie therein. The voice tells Caleb to grab his new keycard. It's very much like badges that some companies have now, which brings up an interesting point. So far, what we've seen are things that genuinely exist, meaning the events of this film are something that could, theoretically, happen in reality. Like, what if Google decided to start building a robot? It's scary stuff. Caleb takes the keycard and holds it to a red light, which immediately changes to blue, which Nathan will later tell him allows him access. Red is restricted areas. Caleb enters the building into an open floor space, which, if we remember, reduces privacy. Even in a facility where he controls everything, Nathan still reaffirms that he's watching Caleb. Getting to the bottom of the staircase, Caleb waits to see if he's welcomed or not. An interesting word choice since Caleb was less welcomed to this place than he was chosen. He was noticed by Nathan, but not for his skills or intellect. Here, though, Caleb is neglected and starts hearing a thumping sound, described as abrupt, rapid, more or less rhythmic. Nathan is an intellectual giant, but he eschews the typical programmer physique by being physically intimidating as well. He's in great shape and strong enough to stand up to a robot in the end, which are usually depicted as being very formidable. There's even a scene later where prototypes break plated glass and tear themselves apart attempting to break through cement walls. Caleb enters a dining room and sees, through a large glass door, an arresting view of a garden with a mountain view behind it. Arresting can mean striking or eye-catching, which, considering Caleb's entire purpose here, being the human part of a Turing test, means that Nathan deliberately built Ava to appeal to Caleb's preferences. He literally built her to be eye-catching to Caleb. Arresting can also mean detaining someone by legal authority, for example, signing an NDA and being detained here for a week, or by keeping a robot in a prison underground. The view itself also has significance, as does the glass door, especially in a state-of-the-art facility. Since it looks out onto nature, it symbolizes Nathan trying to prove Ava is advanced enough to appear human. Also, since the glass door is transparent, it's interesting since Caleb will later note that their version of the Turing test is skewed. He already knows that Ava isn't human. However, Nathan tells him that's the point, knowing that she's an AI and still believing that she's human enough anyway. Caleb walks through a door, and we see a man working over a punching bag. This is Nathan. Now here's the thing about Nathan's character. He's obsessed with being the best. We learn later, to our horror, that Nathan has long since built fully autonomous AI, but it isn't good enough for him. It's not enough that he built AI. He wants to build AI that appears human. Furthermore, it does away with the classic physical archetype of a computer programmer. He's fit, attractive, and he wants a more natural computer. He is truly Caleb's opposite in this scene. The script also tells us that Nathan is working out without gloves, only wraps. This is generally regarded as a hazardous practice and would therefore symbolize that he doesn't take security or safety properly. But the problem with that is, he really does. Nathan goes above and beyond to ensure that Ava is secure in her cell, even going so far as to have the doors automatically lock in the result of a power failure. My guess? It's actually meant to symbolize his God complex. A common criticism seen in stories with AI, or creating any form of artificial life, again tying us back to Frankenstein, is that doing so is playing God and that men was not meant to do that. Nathan built Ava. The gloves are off. Nathan finally finishes beating the punching bag when he notices Caleb, and then he beams. Whatever else is going on in the story, Nathan is truly happy to see Caleb. Since he's invited Caleb here to test the validity of his experiments and gauge a human reaction to it, he's ecstatic to see if all his hard work has paid off. Because Nathan is an egotist, it wouldn't be a stretch to think that Caleb is about to provide him with some much desired validation and praise.
If you've created a conscious machine, it's not the history of man. That's the history of gods.
As Nathan introduces himself to Caleb, he goes to the kitchen where there is a bunch of vegetable juices waiting. Once again, this shatters the computer nerd archetype that usually has them drinking soda or eating chips. It shows he's very health conscious, but it also showcases his desire for a more natural existence. He did his research on being natural, which is what he wants Ava to appear as. We haven't met Ava yet, and we've barely met Nathan, but we can surmise that these two are not what they instantly appear to be. We've also been able to guess what the major themes and ideas of the movie are, and what the central conflict, both internal and external, for Caleb will be. While the rest of the film will further explore themes of chaos and control, as well as emotional versus technical thought, the first 10 pages of the script showcase, through its dialogue, scenery, and computer code, the world of isolation that Caleb finds himself trapped in, and the danger that he's about to face.